of language, you're going to understand now how to actually change the language and adjust the mindset. So we'll spend some time thinking, you know, where this really works well, and your brain's already going there, is everything we're learning about ourselves and our culture today works incredibly well in the conversations that you have with your clients, right? We want you to get to a place where you can actually change the energy of the conversation, okay? But you can't change it if you don't recognize it. And this idea of language helps us recognize where people are at, okay? So let me try to prove this to you. We'll have some fun. I'm going to get you to jump in a bunch again. So I was fortunate to be, drafted #2 in the world to the Washington Capitals. And in year 2, as you can see, I was fortunate to be the captain of that team. Now, let me take you inside that dressing room. I was drafted #2 in the world to the Caps. So what does that tell you about their team? Right? They're not a very good team. They're the second worst team in the NHL that year. Okay. So let me take you inside a dressing room that lost a lot. Do you know what I learned as I look back on the language of that dressing room? You know what I sort of remember is that the common cultural language of that dressing room was what I'm going to call the language of blame. The language of blame. All right, I don't like this word, but let's describe it. Let's have some fun. How does blame show up in conversations? What do you hear when you hear blame? Fire away. Just give us your best idea.
A whole lot of yous.
Yes. Yeah, I'm pointing at you, right?
Yeah, but and deflection, right? I mean, it just it bounces off and goes somewhere else.
It's really good. And I got to say, I love that word deflection. It can be positive and negative, but it's a good hockey term, isn't it?
Yes.
Deflected. Yeah. Fire away.
Yeah, what about?
Yeah. It's good. A couple more. How do you hear blame? Like when it shows up in conversation, not in your culture, because you guys don't do this, but what do you hear? What do you hear?
Well, if so-and-so hadn't done XYZ, then this wouldn't have happened.
So good. So good.
Like a lack of control almost.
That's awesome. In what way? What are you thinking in that way?
You're a victim of your circumstances, and there's nothing you can do to fix it.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. So would we agree, leaders, that blame is a really interesting piece of language that we want to listen into? Whether that's internally in our culture, and I'm sure it doesn't happen often here, or it's externally with our clients, right? Because when we start to hear blame, what are we hearing? We're hearing victimization, agreed? And we're hearing people, and I'm going to say this very humbly and very carefully, that are out of control. So their autonomy, the way that they feel about their situation is not in a place where they sense that they can control it. The reason I say this is the Washington Capitals that year lost a lot. And the language that I primarily remember hearing sounded like this. Oh, the referee screwed us.
Right. Here we go. Yeah.
Right? The referee messed up again. We used to blame the referee for everything. How about this? If we couldn't blame the referee, our goalie was no good. Right? All right, we got to get a new goalie. And if I didn't score some goals, my centerman didn't pass me the puck. Now, I'm not saying that we were like that all the time. We're supposed to be professional athletes, right? But can I just say, leaders, that humanity gets there? Agreed? Sometimes when we're in a very difficult situation long-term, blame becomes a good option. And here's what I learned. Now, can I just say, I want to be careful here. I'm not throwing my guys under the bus, because in year 2, remember this, in year 2, I was captain of that mess.
Mhm.
I was in a leadership position when we were trying to change the energy of the culture. Isn't that crazy? So blame is fascinating, fascinating. Here's what I learned. This is my personal learning is if I could blame the referee or if I could blame my goalie, do you know what that was an indicator of? I didn't have to change. It's not me, baby. And it's almost like I gave all my power to change away to somebody else. Well, if we can get a better referee, well, if we can get a better goalie. And this was a huge, huge, huge learning for me. Is that when I don't blame, it at least keeps it on my shoulders, right? It says, okay, I can take care of what I can take care of. Now, you know what's really interesting? The Capitals lost a lot, and then I got traded to these guys. I went from the Washington Capitals in the National Hockey League, and I got traded to the Montreal Canadiens. And the Capitals lost a lot, and the Canadiens won a lot. The Capitals had never been in the playoffs, and the Montreal Canadiens just came off 6 Stanley Cup wins over the previous 10 seasons. Let me take you inside that dressing room. Now, can I just put on the table? We weren't perfect. This is not a group of perfect people. We messed up a lot. But here was the common cultural language that I remember in that dressing room that we sort of hung stuff on, sounded like this: no excuses, right? And no excuses. Now, how does no excuses language sound in conversations? What do you guys hear in your culture when you hear no excuses? How does it show up?
Ownership.
Love it. How does it show up? What do you hear?
Like personal responsibility.
Love it.
Learning new things to make sure
Yeah,
that
love
it
that.
gets taken care of.
Yeah, I love that. Learning new things, right? We're going to expand who we are. Love that. Couple more. How does no excuses language show up? What does it sound like?
Problem solving.
I love that. Totally.
I think it's looking to the future instead of looking back at the past.
Wow. And we're gonna in our 6 mindset model, we're gonna even go deeper. We're gonna define what that looks like. So that's really good. You know, leaders, one more time, this Montreal Canadian team was not a perfect team. You can't be perfect when we have us humans around, right? But you know, we really had a different focus, and it was on executing the part of the game that was in my purview, that was in my control, right? And here's how it played out. So let me show you how it played out. Now, you don't need to know hockey to do what we do, because this is about as much hockey as you're going to get. But I'm an old centerman. So if you think about that, I take a lot of face-offs, okay? So I played over 1,000 games at the NHL level. So can you imagine how many face-offs I took as a centerman? A lot. And you might not want to know this, but as you start to watch your Seattle NHL team happen, those linesmen, excuse me, those linesmen and those referees, they don't always drop the puck correctly. Are you hearing some blame come in here? Do you feel that? And so in Washington, when they didn't drop the puck correctly, and they dropped it on my opponent's side of the face-off circle, and he won easily, I would go in Washington, I'd go right up to the linesman. Come on, linesman, like, come on, drop the puck right. In Montreal, when the linesman didn't drop the puck correctly and my opponent won easily, I'm just gonna skate up after the linesman and give him a piece of my mind. And my own teammate gives me a whack, boom, on the rear end, says, Ryan, just win the face-off. Isn't that crazy? Just win the face-off, Ryan. And you know what that did to me, leaders? That changed everything. right? Now I'm not blaming outside forces. For example, can you and I control the economy that's coming? Don't think so, right? Can we control some of our clients? Not always. But what can we control? The process that gives us the win. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. What are the processes that are in your control that we can do every day, that we can be the best in the world at, that's going to give our company accelerated wins? So this one for me, leaders, was powerful. What a big grow up time for me. And, you know, I think that for me, that's been a defining factor of our training, is just to, this is not to say there's no judgment in what we're talking about. This is not to say you're this or you're that. This is to say that we want to be aware of the language, right? That permeates our culture and that leaks into our client group. And would we agree? We want to be protective of what comes back from our clients. So a powerful piece, right? I give my energy away to change if I blame people. And I sort of create that self-actualization opportunity and autonomy, right? If I can take and be just sort of in control and responsible for the things that I can be responsible for.